Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum, Future of Finance. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. For those seeking CPE credit today, you must answer at least 3 polling questions and remain on the session for its duration. Polls can be found under the Polls tab on the right-hand side of your console next to Chat. Afterwards, if you are eligible to receive credit, you will receive an email with a link to your certificates. If you have any questions on credits, please email cpe@argyleforum.com. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator, Monica Cheselzik, Head of Global FP&A for Cartesian Therapeutics. We're super excited to have Monica and our panelists for a panel discussion titled Finance Transformation 101. Welcome, Monica. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Welcome, everybody, to our session. I am Monica Cheselzik, and I'm heading FP&A currently for Cartesian Therapeutics. It is a very exciting clinical stage company where we are working on helping with autoimmune diseases. But prior to that, I work also pretty much in the biotech space, working for vaccine at Novavax, but also previously supporting HIV research. So I'm excited to be joined here by Ashok and Joe. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ashok. I have been working in AI and trying to apply AI in accounting and finance for a long time. I'm the CEO of Chatfin, and I'm glad to be here and trying to share our insights on the finance transformation process.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joe. I'm the VP of Product Marketing here at Brex. Thanks to Argyle for having me. Super thrilled to be here to chat about AI. If you haven't heard about Brex, we're a leading corporate card for startups and enterprises based out of San Francisco, California. We also offer software for finance automation, expenses, payments, approvals, travel, accounting, and more. I've been in the B2B software space for the last 12 years and the last 5 years in financial software. So super excited to be here again and looking forward to answering some of the questions.
I am excited to have you guys on the panel. So much information, right? So much experience. Okay, so we'll start with our first question. And so I would like to ask you about how are finance teams prioritizing automation initiatives and what criteria should be used and to determine which process to automate first. And we can share what kind of examples you had of that. And I will start, right? So for me, from my experience, it has been a couple of things. One of them was efficiency, right? And we all talk about it. The other one was frequency of reporting or conducting that work. And then how critical it is for the different processes and generally for decision making. And for me, a couple examples of that would be definitely variance analysis. So long time ago, when I was supporting HIV research, we had pretty complex models, but everything was in Excel. So when I finally was able to move to a financial planning tools and use those to automate reporting and for variance analysis and just really pretty much focus just on the analysis part, that was amazing, right? The other part was when we were developing scenarios as we were changing our company structure at Novavax, actually being able to use specific drivers in and automation in our systems to be able to do it. That was incredible. So, but I will just ask you, Ashok, what do you think? What are your experiences?
So particularly finance transformation, it means different things for different stages of companies. If you're talking about a company where they're still on a very small accounting software and probably no planning tool, for them finance transformation means totally different thing than for a large size company with already ERPs and a lot of systems, right? In terms of if you're actually at a starting stage, your first steps is to get all your data right, and basically getting data right means getting the technology behind it right, getting an ERP, getting a planning tool, standardizing processes, not just technology, but standardizing processes. That should be your first priority. Then thinking of any other use cases, right? Once you get your data right, then you can always think about the next stages of it. And again, now if you're talking about mid to large companies where there's already existing systems, now we are talking about how to make your process efficient, like Monica, how we just mentioned, efficiency is key, right? Now you come up with a roadmap of a lot of things that you want to automate and now prioritize based on the efficiency, prioritize based on the ROI of it. But if you think about this, the automation should be almost free. Of course, there might be a fixed cost, but it should be as easy as an end user should be able to do it. Think about that criteria where we don't even think about, oh, maybe this is like 0.3% more ROI than this. So should I prioritize this one? We should be able to automate all our manual work without even thinking how much effort we're putting in. But having said that, the problem with automation is not about the cost we spend to automate, but it's also about the maintenance of it. So that is the criteria I think we should also consider when selecting these things. What is the thing that we are automating now, but it's also hard to manage it? And we have seen this with a lot of modeling parts, Monica, and particularly in FP&A, right? We automate it and things change and that model just becomes outdated. And we thought that's a high priority, but now making that modification is a huge problem. So those are some things in addition to what Monica mentioned in terms of how much effort it takes to maintain those automations. That should be also a criteria in selecting that use case. What's your thoughts on it, Joe?
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. I think from our experience working with finance teams, it's never been more challenging to hire, to build, to scale a finance team. And I think more than ever, these teams are being asked to do more, cut costs, drive growth, do more with less, find new ways to fuel growth in a really difficult macro environment. And so what we usually recommend for customers is that they start to benchmark themselves against peers in their industry. To your point, Ashok, about maturity and size of company, look at other companies in your industry of the same size, maybe with the same digital maturity, and try to stack rank where you feel your internal processes and your data and your technology is the most gapped relative to your industry. I think another really big thing here is to break down those processes into an assembly line and try to find places where data is a bottleneck. Monica, like you pointed out, I think data aggregation, data reporting, these are all highly manual processes that could benefit from AI, where AI is a prime disruptor. And so things like, is it making vendor payments on time? Is it about categorizing expenses from employees and payments down to the line item? Time spent in spreadsheets, gathering data, analyzing data, forecasting revenue, expenses, and costs. And so we've spent the last 7 years since we've been operating, surveying customers, collecting data on the before and after of using Brex, and kind of the main areas we see are around expenses and accounting. So we hear from customers all the time that they wish they could streamline the process of collecting receipts at the end of the statement period, handling reimbursements back to employees, reconciling payments, things of that sort, and everything around the life cycle of moving money out, maintaining clean books, and spending less time at the end of the month or end of the quarter closing the books. So make a quick plug for Brex here. We save our customers an average of 440 hours a year on accounting and expense automation. So that's about 35 hours a month, and we're really proud of that. But again, looking back at your own company, the stage of maturity, benchmarking against your peers, and looking at areas where data is the bottleneck and where you can use AI to make sense of that data and automate processes.
It's excellent. I agree with both of you. And that's really important to consider. So moving to the next question that we have, Joe, do you mind taking this on key components of successful digital transformation implementation in finance? What do you think are the most important ones?
I love this question. I think I spend a lot of time internally at Brex trying to keep everyone focused on business objectives. And I think that's the most important part to really any business initiative is being very clear and objective about what is the goal of the project. And so for this finance transformation, focused implementation typically is around productivity or cost reduction and overhead. And so again, looking at the specific workflows or processes you're trying to improve or transform. Is it about improving adherence to expense policies by 25% and looking at how many thousands of dollars or millions of dollars every month that might save depending on your company size? Or are you looking to cut the time in half, the time it takes you to close your books? Can you do that with fewer bookkeeper resources and allocate finance resources to other strategic objectives and strategic initiatives? The second thing that I think is really critical beyond clear goals and objectives is doing vendor due diligence. And so look at what's best agreed in your industry, not just Brex, but look at other tools in your entire finance stack, accounting, payroll, reporting, expenses, travel, payments, AP, automation. All of those things are really great to benchmark against your peers, see what other folks are using and where they've seen benefits from AI. And then also look at more objective or third-party reviews, online reviews, analysts like IDC and Forrester and Gartner, who are advising CFOs and finance leaders on these types of initiatives and what types of processes to automate and which vendors to look at. I think the third thing I would say is really just defining key milestones for the project and then timelines for each of those milestones. Really important that you hold folks internally accountable and also hold vendors accountable to sticking to those timelines, creating a cadence, creating momentum behind the implementation and being really intentional with the folks internally and how they're spending their time on the implementation. Altogether, kind of rolling it into a mutual action plan with the vendors is really important. And that's something you should really think about evaluating when you are deciding which vendors to partner with. But I'll pass it over to you, Ashok. What do you think about key components of a successful implementation?
I've spoken to many companies about their finance transformation journey, right? Usually it starts with leadership asks for some data, the data is provided, or there is like a huge delay in providing the data because there's a lot of manual processes or data is not accurate. That's when people realize something is not working in their process, right? In getting this data and getting this finance data ready. Then they think, oh, so now we need a big transformation process to just streamline everything, see what we need, and they will assign someone to go through all our existing processes and see where we can improve. So that's how usually it starts. But my biggest problem with that is usually it is seen as a one-time transformation, but I think a key component would be a continuous improvement. It's not just once you realize, oh, there is something wrong, let's change everything. It should be a continuous process. Every quarter, every year, every 3 years, you have to do this process because if you think about it, as I mentioned, transformation always changes over years, right? Now, in most of the companies, when they do finance transformation, getting a planning tool is a very key part of doing this transformation. But it's going to change in the next future. AI, like Joe keeps mentioning, right? It's AI. It's going to change in the next few years how it's going to come, and probably later there's something else. So you can't have this as a one instance of time doing this transformation. You need to have a continuous improvement process within your teams, within your company, where you're surfacing where there are inefficiencies, where there is savings that you can bring in, and having that process is the key component of having a very successful transformation journey. Do you agree, Monica, on that?
Yeah, you both had a very important insight. I would just add to that what I noticed from my experience is that the other important component through the transformation is also stakeholder engagement together with the leadership support, because we might be thinking, or our team might be thinking, that we really need it, right? But if we don't have that sponsorship from the leadership who help us push this through, that sometimes things will don't become possible, right? And then I really like your comment about the continuous improvement. I would add to that also to come up with some type of measurements, right? That we can use for that for the actual implementation will be important. And then part what I noticed also when we did implementation of the big ERP, if we don't have defined processes before, like you said, Ashok, at the very beginning, right? Then it's difficult to actually implement anything because it will not work, right? Because it didn't work before, it will not work now if you don't know how that works. And then also when we have a big implementation, also invest in the training, because we cannot assume because we are part of the implementation, right, that everybody else knows how the system works.
Yeah.
Excellent. Ashraf, do you mind talk more about AI-driven automation and specifically how can AI-driven automation enhance financial decision-making and reduce errors? I believe this is just very hard for everybody, right? Because everybody wants to understand more AI and you have just so much expertise in this area.
Right. So automation, we can classify into various things, right? For moving data, like let's say integration, that's also an automation. Usually we used to do a manual uploads, manual extracts of data. Now we can automate using basically coding or using a tool to do it, right? And then we also had RPA tools. When there's a repetitive process, you're doing invoice processing, it's a very repetitive process. Those steps, you do those steps day in and day out, every day for months. So now we know we can use an RPA tool to automate. But now we have this AI-driven automation, which is a little different from what we have done earlier. AI basically will give the capability to the end user to do the automation. That means you don't need a very specific skill. You don't need a coding skill or probably an RPA skill to do that kind of an automation. An end user, when they realize, this seems repetitive, I can just automate this process. I don't have to do it every month. And that would be a great advantage of AI-driven automation, right? Like by the capability to the end user to do their own automation. And now if we think about how can they leverage this in various processes, starting from like Joe said, like spend management, the expense management, to your reconciliations, your account bank reconciliations, to your flux analysis, BVA, Monica. Huge variance analysis is a huge task during month end, right? And then you also have these analytics dashboards. All this probably can be automated. The advantage of doing with AI is AI has more intelligence than any other automations. That means if something changes, it can adapt to it. As an example, you have done invoice processing. What if you get a new invoice format or a new line item that your RPA can't even read it? That's when the traditional processes fail, but AI can actually adapt to this new kind of a change, and our edge cases will be much more reduced. So we don't need human intervention in automating it. And as you know, it's the normal advantage of automating anything is that the process becomes repetitive and the human errors gets reduced, things get much more accurate. And also there is a lot of time saving that happens on the end user self, so that they can actually use it to apply to any other more important and significant process in their daily work.
Excellent. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's pretty astounding what LLMs and the new sort of wave of generative AI is capable of accomplishing. Looking at companies like OpenAI with ChatGPT, Anthropic, Perplexity, and the level of intelligence that these tools and these models are able to demonstrate, and applying it to kind of these two areas. Thinking about like these models are trained on large amounts of data, and you can use tools. Brex is maybe one example, but lots of different tools in the industry are using these models to look at historical patterns in data and automate things. For the manual data errors, really any of the processes that you audit, anything that's bottlenecked by data entry, things like verification of categories, expenses, reconciliation with bank statements. These are also prime areas for AI-driven automation, and areas where AI can start to learn and understand how you map certain types of expenses and vendors and regular documentation to your books in your accounting software. And for decision making, I think it really is about looking at the historical trends for costs and expenses, payments, revenue, and starting to use collective intelligence and benchmarks to estimate and create predictability around those different metrics in your business. So really, these models and what AI is useful for in general, and this has been touched on by Ashok and Monica, is really looking at large amounts of data and summarizing and analyzing that data in a fraction of the time that it would take humans or a team of finance professionals. So really using the compute and the crowdsourced models that have been integrated into a lot of finance tools for these different scenarios is really critical.
Yeah, that's excellent point, both of you. I would just add from that to that like for me in FP&A, a big one always been the predictive analytics, right? The only one thing that I found as a potential risk in this area, especially as we are looking at possibly smaller company that don't have so much consistent data, right, is that how AI is actually analyzing this information, or how can you analyze information that you don't have, right? So that was the struggle that I had working for smaller companies or places where the prior period's data was not really informing future, right? But AI is insane, right? Like I agree with you, ChatGPT and other places, right? Like we probably all tested, and it is incredible what information we can get now versus even a year ago.
Right. Well, one simple point there, Monica, is particularly with teams with very less data, and you're using AI to do predictive analytics. If you think about how humans do it, right? When they have very little bit of data, they analyze that little bit of data and then they go mostly for a guesswork, right? They'll say, oh, maybe we'll go here, right? That is what machine also does. When it has very less data, the output becomes very uncertain. It is basically going and just pointing at it in a direction where I don't think it has any confidence in saying where we're going. Yeah. Same like humans.
I am with you. Yeah. So that's again, this is a guesswork, right? But it might, if we were going, you have a good point. If we were going to add maybe those assumptions that we are using, right, for the predictive analytics to AI, then AI might be even more accurate than we are.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So the next question that we have on is, what strategies can finance team use to overcome budgetary constraints when investing in new technologies, and how can the ROI on investments be justified to stakeholders, right? So I will start on that. So from my experience, when there's a limited funding, and that seems to be, right, the consistent situation, there might be some boom situation when we have all the money in the world, right? I've been in those places too, when when money don't matter, right? We just have to accomplish what we have to do, right?
We wish it was like that forever, right?
I know, right? And then like you have like this rude awakening happening to you. You're like, oh, what? Why? But so in this case, right? So like what I understood from all this experience is that really truly, even in those situations, we should prioritize high impact projects, right? Because it is capital, but it's also like it's funding, but it's also human capital, right? So you might have all the money in this particular moment, but you might not have the resources to implement it. But then also you have to evaluate if all the ideas that you have, they are actually critical right now, or what can we move at this particular moment. The other interesting concept that I was thinking of was that even if there is not enough money, maybe we can carve out portion of it for a demo, right? So really truly test it, like just limited amount of work to see if that software tool, whatever we're investing in, right, from perspective of automation, will actually help us. And then because of that, we can actually get a sponsorship of the leadership. And the other areas that I was thinking that I found out that often they might be less expensive is if we utilize cloud solution, then that reduces, in this case, right, the investments in the hardware. Or if your particular department does not have the money, maybe if we connect with the other ones, right, we can do that. I had this situation last year where I said, well, I don't have money for this implementation. I really need to do this work. And I talked to my colleague from IT. And he said, well, I put some money aside for this type of work. So if we work together, right, I can help you because I know that because of that, you will be able to provide me better reporting. So, so Joe, what do you think? You have probably so much experience in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the most challenging things is looking at maybe a mountain of work and trying to prioritize sort of the business as usual activities alongside some of these transformation initiatives that might take months, quarters, even years to materialize. And so I think the first thing what we'd obviously recommend is tallying up your existing costs. Look at areas across all the tools that you're using across your finance tech stack, and then look for areas where you can consolidate and evaluate more modern or disruptive solutions that kind of bring together some of these capabilities and workflows into one system. That's going to save a lot of people time. It's going to save you money on software seats and licenses. And take a very close look at those things. I think it's very common the case that there's software and disparate software across the organization where people are basically doing the same thing in two different tools: project management software, expenses, cards, corporate cards, things like that, and find ways to consolidate there as well. And the second thing I would say is on sort of the ROI justification. If you are given the green light to pursue a project and need to build a business case internally, ultimately, kind of coming back to those core principles of like saving time, saving money, automating manual work. And it's pretty easy to translate some of those hours when you look at automation and the impact of AI, translating hours saved into payroll dollars and building a business case around a dollar amount versus a time savings. And then you can also look at things like cost savings. If there's a tool that's going to give you additional visibility and oversight into expenses and spend, and you feel confident you can keep a larger percentage of the spend in policy, that's also another dollar amount you can add to the equation. The last thing I would say is there's a lot of tools out there. This is kind of the essence of fintech in general, is convergence of financial services and financial software. And so there's a lot of financial services offerings out there in the market, money market funds and treasury that give you yield that are sort of in line with interest rates right now. Credit cards that give you cash back and rewards that can help you build and grow your business. So areas where you're actually getting positive or net new revenue or income streams, alongside areas where you can reduce costs, consolidate software licenses. Those are kind of some of the areas where you can start to build a multi-variable equation that you can build a business case around. Ashok, any thoughts on that?
I like the point Monica mentioned about pilots, right? I think in the enterprise, we all know any project will start with a pilot and then go into implementation. But usually people are scared of starting a pilot. Ideally, I think every team should have a pilot of a tool or a technology that should be continuously happening. Any technology, right? What you're getting by doing a pilot is you're learning from it. Your team is learning from it. What is the capability of it? What else can be done? Let's say if you don't like the tool, you can always go for something else. But don't shy away from getting into new technology, because the start of the project is not a pilot. The start of the project is actually the full implementation. The pilot is the pre-work that you're doing. And the pre-work needs to be done continuously. Try various tools in your company, in your teams. You can always get an easy buy-in for a pilot than a full implementation. And as that will give you enough proof to say, hey, we did this. These are the learnings that we got. We like it, we don't like it, or this is what we should do. And think about what happens to your career when you actually think in that way, when you take it to your leadership and say, hey, this is what we learned from the pilot, and this is what we should do. And that is what actually probably leadership is looking at you to get that kind of information. And that is only possible by doing pilots. And again, and if you think about ROI is a very good criteria to look at a project and also get a buy-in from leadership. But there's also a problem with ROI for AI tools at this point of time. I do AI, and I'm having this conversation with a lot of companies. Is let's say if you're trying to implement a planning tool or an ERP or any other tool, you also have a lot of peers or competition where you can go benchmark it and get the data. But with AI, you don't have benchmarks. You don't know the ROI of the tool you're going to implement. How do you use that ROI as criteria to build a business case? And that has become a big problem for small companies to large companies. How do we even build ROI for AI tools? I think it'll take a few more years. It's not about the technology right now, but we don't have enough reference data to build our business cases for AI. But there are a lot of companies that are more experimental in nature, more forward thinking in terms of technology. Those companies are jumping into it and see what they can do with AI. So ROI is not the criteria there, but it's much more about learning, being ahead of the game, and also if you can get any competitive advantage over your competition, because now your finance team, let's say, is using this AI, they become much more efficient, building accurate results with less number of resources. That's your competitive advantage that you're building by going ahead in the game, right? So different criteria to overcome the budgetary constraints is finding a very smart way to put your business case in. And again, don't shy away from starting a pilot within your team.
Excellent point. Well, so then you both brought this in your in your conversation, right? But Joe, do you maybe start and tell and share with us what do you think are the successful transformation efforts measure and what KPIs should be tracked?
Absolutely. I think we'll go back to the earlier question about for a successful implementation. And I think it's really important to consistently revisit the initial goals and the business objectives behind the project of finance transformation. I think three kind of key areas, I'll keep it relatively short here, is number one, look at how on time the project is according to the estimates. And again, that really goes back to getting your internal stakeholders aligned and engaged, as you mentioned, Monica, and making sure that those hours spent are useful in moving the project along, hitting milestones on time. Number two is looking at cost and time savings and trying to do so and benchmark it 6 months out, 12 months out, 18 months out. Some of these initiatives can take several quarters, as mentioned, to materialize and really produce results in the areas of cost or time savings. And then number three is look at adoption. Some of these tools, when they're deployed, can take some time for employees to get used to them, for finance teams to learn their way around these new platforms. And so are these new tools being used? What's the general sentiment or satisfaction with these tools? Even surveying employees and your finance team on adoption is a really important thing when looking at measuring success of these initiatives. Ashok, any other thoughts you have?
So usually I've gone through multiple transformation cycles, and I've seen what happens is once before we build a business case, we have all the metrics that we want to capture. But after the project, no one really cares about it, right? There are some where we'll go through the project and say like a retro and see how much we achieved, but usually no one cares about what we have done with that project, and we move on to the next one. Having that kind of a retro of our existing transformation efforts, I think will give us a very good understanding of what are the assumptions we made before we started that project, that transformation project, right? Think about implementing a planning tool, and we said, oh, we're going to achieve all this. Did we really achieve this? Did we achieve all the savings that we are supposed to? Or if we not, we shouldn't look at it as a failure, right? There's always an advantage of having a better data model, a better workflow. But what are all the other learnings that we got from it? That would actually help us to build a better and a robust transformation process for our next projects.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I just would also add, because I am in finance, data accuracy and quality. So like many times we had the implementation, and then in the end, when we'll get the results, it is not matching, right, to what we had in the prior system. And possibly that was something else that happened, right? That things are working slightly differently. But that should be also called during the implementation process, right? We shouldn't be waiting until the end and the final results, right, to get there. But they're all good points. And Asha, do you mind maybe walking us about what do you think are the most common pitfalls of or challenges, right, related to digital transformation implementation?
I'll share my personal experience. I've seen this project, was not involved. I got into that project, but a lot of modeling was done in Excel for this company. And then they thought, oh, the times have changed. We should have a better modeling technique, how we capture the data, how we do modeling, how do we reporting. So they started a transformation project. Project went well, but the accuracy was really bad. They're not able to tie numbers with the modeling output to the inputs. And the project just continued for months and months and months. And then it was left like that. And no action was taken. The project was left like that. They just continued their manual process for a few years. And no one even thought about doing it. So that is one of the biggest pitfall is like when a case like that happens where you still have, there's nothing like a problem cannot be solved. It's just that you need enough attention from the leadership, enough resources to solve the problem. So is your leadership committed to it? That's a big pitfall, right? If something goes wrong, is your leadership committed to put more resources to solve the problem? That's for a leadership thing. But again, data accuracy is a huge problem. Monica, data accuracy, data silos. We build these tools, and if we actually build a data silo, that means this is only for us, and no one has access to it. And now, or someone has this, like mostly for the CRM data, if you're talking about it, no finance people have access to it, the granular CRM data, right? Then if you want, you have to go ask them to get the data to include that in your modeling. So all those things are a problem, right? If you're building a transformation project and if you're building a data silo, that's a huge red flag. And we have to be very aware of, are we building a data silo, or are we making much more democratic access to the data, that what people can access? Adoption, like Joe mentioned, adoption is a huge issue in terms of a pitfall. You have this fancy tool, fancy technology that you brought in. Everyone is excited. You did a pilot, you did a full implementation. The adoption slowly goes down. People are going back to their manual process and not using the tool. And how do we stop them? And probably, Monica, you should share, how do we stop that to happen when the adoption is actually reducing? Who should be responsible to take care of that?
Well, we all, right? Business, right? Like, Joe, what do you think, right? Like this, we are all in it, right? So, but what you are saying is like there are so many different, right, problems here that with this particular things. I would just add to that that's the buy-in, right? Because like resistant to change, that might be one of them. That if we don't, like, what I found it was that whatever change we implement, whatever that is, right? If we don't explain to the end users or to participant of this change, why are we doing, and what is the benefit to them, they will not buy it, right? It's just as simply as that. And then, right, and the other things what I also found during this type of implementation was that if there is not a clear vision and strategy and understanding of what we are doing, then like whatever we do, it will be just like, we are maybe implementing this expensive ERP system, but in the end, it's gonna be like really, it will not be as great as we anticipated. Joe, last thoughts?
Yeah, I think to the point earlier about getting the buy-in, justification, I think the other thing I would say is there's a lot of vendors who invest internally in project management, white glove service and support and training resources. And so looking for those vendors who can actually lend a hand and help train and evangelize the products and why they're useful for different folks internally to use is really important. We'll also say just getting clear alignment on the decision criteria and the internal alignment and buy-in after decision, making sure everybody is brought along for the ride. Another thing in terms of pitfalls is maybe not having the skills or the talent in-house to evaluate and benchmark the cost of services from vendors. And so using a benchmarking service or a team of negotiation procurement experts, we work with a company by the name of Vendor who specialize in this, one of our partners. And so again, kind of making use of the services that vendors can offer to you to expedite and evangelize these transformation initiatives is really important.
Excellent. I will move to the questions from our audience. We're just so excited to have you all here and share our perspective. So I noticed that the first question is actually for me. So I will answer that. It is asking what kind of software I implemented that helped with automating FP&A platform. So I personally think highly about Workday Adaptive Insights for that particular reason that it is extremely flexible. And the system itself works a bit more like, it's not Excel, right? Because Excel does not provide you with this information, but it allows you to manipulate sheets even after you implement it, right? So you have this flexibility to adjust FP&A models after you implement them, which is incredible because in many different stages, if you implement something, you have to live with it, right? And I have worked for places, and I don't think there has been one single one that has a defined model that lasted with us for more than 6 months, right? So we have to be able in the position that we are able to adjust and apply changes. I have a next question, and Joe or Ashok, tell me who would like to take this. Do you have structured approaches to managing a profusion of pilots and good innovation problems to have?
My subset of companies that I talk to is always limited, but I have never seen a company where they said, oh, we are doing too many pilots. We don't have time to do anything, right? Usually people are scared to do a pilot because they think it gives them more work, managing it or testing it and also making a decision on it, which probably scares people, right? So that's why they avoid doing it. It's not about budget. It's not about anything else. So what is the structured approach? Again, is having that innovation mindset within the team to try new things, to see where there is a new learning. It's not just always you think, I'll go to a conference or I'll talk to my peer in a different company and learn from there. You can be a pioneer in learning that. You can be that person who knows everything in your company and also in your peer network to do it. And that happens only when you try new things. And again, I don't think there's a structured approach to a pilot, particularly in finance transformation. And probably Monica and Joe, you can say if you have seen something. I haven't seen anything yet in terms of doing pilots, but the thumb rule should be there should be a pilot going on at any point of the time. What it says is that you're trying new things, you're trying to find those gaps, trying to fill those gaps, and trying to find efficiencies.
I'll also add kind of in the most improvement that you mentioned, Ashok, carving out time every quarter, every month to focus on experimentation. Maybe it's 10%, maybe it's one team member spending, 1 day a week doing the research and managing the vendors in the pilot. But to the point earlier, I haven't heard of that before. I think if there's a big enough pain point and there's enough interest internally and alignment to try to solve the problem in a long-term way, also just really important to carve out time on a regular basis to solve those longer-term problems and look for innovative solutions to them.
Right. Not just solving, right? Also look for problems is also a huge task.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I love that, right? Because that's what I'm gonna do after this meeting, after this panel. I'm going to put time on my calendar to research, because that's what I believe all of us really think about, and also why we're attending the panels like that, right? Because we want to learn. But then do we find enough time to do the research? And I tell myself I will, right? But then I don't find time. So putting the time will be it's an excellent idea.
That's right. And do let us know, Monica, how the whole structure went. So
okay, I will. We will stay in touch, and we will update you all on that topic too. So we have another question. how can companies balance the need for cutting edge technology with the realities of tight budgets? That's something that we talked about earlier, right? That cutting edge. So I can maybe touch on that and maybe let you all answer too. But it is all about trade-offs, right now where we are. And Joe had excellent ideas, actually going outside of even budgeting, right? If you are a smaller business, possibly there might be cards that give you extra points, right? That you can use toward paying for those technologies. Some technologies might be free to test. That's what I found. That's what I use. I use for personal work type of work, but really for personal, for testing. And then I said that really works and why, and we implement it in our company. Joe, what do you think?
I think to the point about finding new products and piloting solutions that will actually generate kind of net new income you can use to pay for other innovative tools is one. But I think number two, kind of going into a transformation initiative, looking at ways you can actually reduce the costs for that existing function or those existing processes, and then reallocating that cost to something that will continue to drive down the cost of that process. So trying to find dollars where there's duplicative tools, where there isn't usage and utilization, and trying to really slim that down before you find a tool that can replace and ultimately continue to drive down costs of that function.
Excellent.
I think, Monica, you mentioned, right, having a friend in IT really helps. who can give you some of the budget for the new technology.
Yes. My hat to him, but that also comes with the collaboration, right? So like at work, right, it is more about making sure that you don't know who might have to be your friend at some point. That's kind of the other wisdom, right, that I learned through all my career. And so by doing that, right, you might end up having collaborated with somebody that you were not originally planning, but you might have a common goal that might connect you on that. We have 2 more minutes, so I have one last question. How are finance teams currently leveraging automation to streamline processes and reduce manual errors? Any of you would like to take this? I can help with it as well.
I can chime in quick. I think the areas that we see the most within our customer base at Brex is really around expense automation, employee expenses, reimbursements, categorizing those expenses, providing employees with the right context so that they can categorize expenses on their own. Brex also, in a lot of cases, automates the generation of receipts. So some of these new innovative solutions have digital payment rails and ways of generating data from receipts on behalf of employees, so they don't have to submit it themselves. The other one's really around accounting and keeping a real-time sync with your accounting journal, categorizing and collecting documentation and automating that to the point about documentation as well when it comes to invoicing and payments. A ton of tools out there that help with invoice ingestion, making sense of that invoice, payment details, line items, categorization, that sort of thing. Super important.
Excellent. Thank you everybody for the attendance and for all this amazing insights from you, Joe and Ashok. That was a pleasure to moderate this panel. And so just maybe a final thought for all of us, right? Like my main will be what I just talked about, right? That we have to collaborate together during the transformation, get a buy-in, and put time on our calendar to explore how we can improve the processes, right? Joe?
I would say really quick, just don't only look at tried and trusted tools, but look at disruptors and innovators, and don't be afraid to try something new.
Ashok?
And just want to agree, don't underestimate the power of collaboration. It can actually do magic, right? And also continuous improvement, and try AI.
We will, right? So thank you so much, everybody, for attendance. I can just move back to Nick.
And thank you all for such an amazing panel discussion. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. For those of you who earned points throughout today's event, an Argyle team member will be following up with the winners in the next couple of weeks. This officially concludes the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum, Future of Finance. Thank you again for joining us today and engaging in our content. We look forward to seeing you at our next Argyle Digital Finance event soon, which will be our CFO Leadership Forum, Finance Evolution 2024 on October 17th, 2024. Have a great rest of your day.